What's up everybody, I'm Scott Bynel. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you're doing well. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how I like to EQ guitars for metal, and I'm going to do that by demoing the GUP Tech Lab Series Parametric EQ prototype. Alright, so if you're wondering what is this pedal, well, it's a Parametric EQ. I'll talk in a minute about what that means and how I like to use it, especially in the loop of a high gain amp. But essentially this is part of GUP Tech's Lab Series, which is like a testing ground for Guillaume to try out different things. It's not yet in full production, you know, with the artwork and like the fun name that they give their pedals. Go bug Guillaume, tell him to make this a production model because this pedal is seriously awesome. I love it in the loop of my amps. I'm gonna demo it in just a second, but what I wanna do first is talk to you a bit about what is a parametric EQ, how I like to use it, how I like to set it, and also in general, how I like to EQ guitars. Now, if you don't need a refresher or some information on how to use a parametric EQ or EQ in general, feel free to use the timestamps down below in the description of this video and skip right ahead to the demo. One thing I want to mention about this pedal real quick before I jump into it is that it has a master level or like a master volume, which is really great if you want to use this as like a solo boost. So in addition to being able to cut or boost your low, mid, and high frequencies, you can cut or boost the overall signal of the pedal. I tend to keep this around noon, maybe just a little bit past noon. There's a lot of volume on tap here. It's pretty aggressive, so keep that in mind when you're setting your levels. Okay, so let me just walk you through the interface of this pedal. That top left clear knob is your level. That's your overall output of the pedal. If you turn that to the left, you're cutting your signal, and as you turn it to the right, you're boosting your signal. To the right of that, you have your frequency control, your low, your mid, and your high. I'll go row by row what these mean. That top row labeled Q is your bandwidth control. So as you turn those knobs to the left, you're narrowing your bandwidth, so you're targeting a specific frequency. As you turn those knobs up, you're widening that bandwidth and you are grabbing the frequencies that are around your target frequency. The middle row is labeled boost. That's doing exactly what you think it's doing under the low, mid, or high. You are either boosting or cutting those frequencies. As you turn those knobs to the left, you are cutting the frequency, and as you turn it to the right, you are boosting it. When you have it set to noon, it is neutral. You are not boosting and you are not cutting. And that last row at the bottom, as you guessed it, is your frequency control. So under the lows, you can control between 33 Hertz and 330 Hertz. Your mids, you can control between 250 Hertz all the way up to 2.5K. And your highs, you can control between 1.1K and 11K. All right, so now I'm gonna talk to you a bit about how I like to set and use a parametric EQ. If you're new to the parametric EQ game or you've like avoided them because they seem intimidating, they're really not that hard to understand once you understand what bandwidth is doing, what your boosting is doing, and what frequency you're targeting. So I'm gonna share with you some tips and some guidelines as to how I like to approach using these things. Hopefully it works for you too. The first thing I do is set the Q or the bandwidth all the way to the left, so I'm having a very narrow Q so I understand which frequency I'm trying to target. At that point, I'll actually turn the boost up, sometimes all the way, and then I will sweep across the frequency spectrum using the frequency knob at the bottom. And what I'm doing here is I'm exaggerating the boost on a specific frequency to find the frequency that I either like and I want to eventually boost, or maybe the frequency that I don't like and I eventually want to cut. At that point, when I find it, I'll adjust my boost level. I'm either gonna boost it or I'm gonna cut it. And then I'll play a bit with the bandwidth to see where I like it to sit if I wanna have a targeted frequency or if I wanna widen that bandwidth to smooth it out a little bit. So I use that process to first adjust my low frequencies. I then move on to my highs. And then finally, at the end, I adjust my mids, and you'll see that in the demo that is coming up shortly. I think it's important to mention right now too that tone is subjective, okay? There's no right tone and there's no wrong tone. As much as people on the internet will tell you and give you their opinion of your tone, if your tone sounds good to you in your ears, then it's a good tone for you, okay? You know, I've had people reach out to me and say that they love my tone, they think it's great, awesome, thank you so much. I've had people tell me they think my tone is shit. That's okay too. You know, it's an opinion, guys, okay? There's not like a science and a right answer to this. So as we go through this video, keep that in mind that the settings on this pedal and the tone that I'm getting aren't necessarily gonna have the same results with your setup. You know, your style of playing, your guitar, your pickups, the pedals that you have in front of your amp, the amp itself, the amp settings, your cabinet and speaker, microphone, your impulse response if you're using an IR. All of this has an effect on your tone, so use this video as a bit of a guideline. Take the settings with a grain of salt because results may vary. All right, and some general guidelines to EQing metal guitars. I tend to like to cut around 30 to 50 hertz. You don't really need it. It's that low end rumble. You know, your kick drum and your bass are gonna take care of the low end stuff. So I usually like to cut that out right away. On the high end, I tend to like to get rid of like around the 5K, 4, 5, 6K frequency range. I find that's where you get that kind of high pitched, kind of squeaky, really kind of annoying sound. You'll hear in the video where I hit that point. I like to cut that out of the tone. I don't think you really need it. It doesn't sound great. I usually then finish off with my mids. I like to boost around 1 to 2K. Don't ignore your mids, guys. Guitar is a mid-range instrument, especially if you are mixing this into like a full mix with drums and bass. To have your guitar cut through that mix, don't ignore your mids. All right, so at this point, I think I've talked enough in this video. I'm gonna jump into demoing this pedal for you. My signal chain starts with my Mioness Regius 6 loaded with bare knuckle juggernauts. That's going into the front of my EVH 5153 Stealth 50 watt head. Unboosted, there's no pedals in front of it. In the effects loop, I've got the GUP Tech Parametric EQ. The amp is then plugged into my 2-Notes Torpedo Studio. I have an IR loaded from Get Good Drums as part of their Cali Oversize Pack. It's the preset that's just a simple SM57 on the speaker. There's no post-processing on the guitar. Here we go. what did you think? Leave me a comment down below. I would love to know your opinion. Remember, tone is subjective, so if you like it, great. If you didn't, that's okay too, totally cool. But I wanna know, do you like the 5153 on its own, or did you prefer it with the pedal in the loop? For me personally, I love the EVH 5153 Stealth head. I think it's a great head. It's kind of like a wildly loved head in the metal community. Lots of people rave about it, lots of people love it. But as I was playing with this EQ in the loop, there were some frequencies in the amp that I hadn't really noticed before, but as I started to cut them out, I couldn't unhear them when I turned the pedal off. And so for me personally, I prefer this pedal in the loop. I think it sounds great. Like I said, would love to hear from you. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know your opinion of this pedal. If you like this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and consider subscribing. We'd really appreciate it. And remember, stay safe and stay heavy. See you in the next video.